Hello everybody, I'm going to do another little update, real time. I know right before you see this, you'll see the Hebrews teaching. And of course I want to focus on those, the posts where I'm teaching you guys. But I'm getting ready to teach in the ranch. I don't like saying where I'm going. I'm going to read these two cases, but these are my personal things that you hear me speak about. I mentioned yesterday I was at Timmins, the mission, and Roger, a friend of mine, I didn't see the incident. He was inside the mission eating lunch. But there's a black guy that goes up there. I've seen him a lot. He seems maybe he's got mental issues. Some people do have that. But I guess inside they got in a fight or something, or I heard the story. But of course 2 cop cars came up, the big, SUV units, and they were parked there. I was just sitting there, and they came for that reason, and then they just told that black guy, you need to leave the property, and it was really not a big thing, but they were there for maybe 30 minutes talking. I don't know these guys. One was young, one was older. So, I'm just sitting there. Had nothing to do with me, okay? Those 2 on-duty cops in uniform. I could have videoed. Had no need to video. But as they were there, and then some other people came out, a couple, I think, maybe just a girl, I'm not sure. But I know one was a girl, and they walked across. They were done eating, and they walked across. And the one cop said, the older guy said, you, get over here. Let's see your ID. I don't know why, maybe, I have no idea. Legally, you can ask for an ID. And I'm sure your job and your authority, it's not your own personal thing. These are the 2 cases that I cut out the other day. This one, I'll read it to you. These I've had for maybe 5 days. Even when I read them, the night I'm reading the newspaper, I get upset. Judge says man in prison is innocent. Okay, a guy was convicted in 1992, this is Waco, Texas, and given life in prison, and the 3 accomplices were given 20 years. And they all served the 20 years. One, it said, got out after 17 years. Central Texas man serving life in prison for double slaying in 1992 is innocent, as are the 3 co-defendants who are no longer in prison. They served there 20 years. So one guy got life, the other 3 got 20 years. Retired Judge Allen ruled Friday. Now this was the same judge, by the way, that convicted them, which gives a little more weight to it, because a lot of times the judges, maybe if there's lying and manipulation by prosecutors, which you had here. Retired Judge Allen ruled Friday that Richard Brian Kuzmal, 45, should be free. His 3 co-defendants each received 20-year sentences and have already been released because they served their time. DNA evidence not available 20 years ago shows the 4 weren't involved in the shootings, okay, at a home near Waco. Allen said in his 4-page opinion, the actual judge who convicted them, that's what he said, that they were now innocent. And now it's still got to go to the Texas Court of Appeals. If I remember, I watched something on Angola prison documentary. I might mention that in a second. They still got to, the criminal appeals often, probation, parole boards and all, often they don't look at innocence or guilt. They just look at, well, they had the trial. Was anything real bad done in the trial? Which in this case, the judge found out the prosecutors did. The evidence is overwhelming. It says these men are excluded. They had absolutely no contact with the people, okay? Judge Allen presided over the trial. His 3 co-defendants, they give the names. At the hearing last month, after 3 guys did 20 years, and they all said they were innocent, Long, Shelton, and Pitts, everyone testified that they all gave false testimony against the main guy who got life because the prosecutor asked them to lie, and if they lied, they would get probation. Of course, the prosecutor lied to them as well. They don't give the name of the prosecutor. But the judge found out, Judge Allen, who was retired and came back to look at the case, he found out because all of them said, well, the prosecutor told us, unless we can pin it on the one guy, we all are going to go life. The guy lies, this prosecutor, whoever he is. And so the judge now found it out, and it was true. Prosecutor lied. And he's, just tell me he did it and all. Now that prosecutor, this is what people don't understand. He will face nothing. The cops who did the arrest, they will face zero penalty. The system treats this in civilian life would be considered kidnapping. If you take someone and you hold them captive for 20-something years of life or whatever, or if you put them to death, that's considered murder, or when the system finds out that they might have executed an innocent man, and people lied in the system, our country sees that as almost an acceptable part of the process. This is what I think the average public does not understand. When they're caught getting false testimony, harassing, pursuing, whatever it is, when they're caught, even after long life sentences, there is no discipline. The prosecutors and the cops and all, in the cases where false testimony is suborned and everything, the system doesn't have something where they refer those things maybe to the State Bar Association, like a lawyer thing. And then the lawyer who gives the people their law license to practice law, they might deem it, something wrong was done and we remove your law license. Bill Clinton had his law license removed because the perjury in the Monica Lewinsky case. The public just does not seem to understand. If you hold someone or even just put them in jail for a month or a week, and later, even after 20 years, and then it's revealed that, like in that case, the judge said, yes, that prosecutor did lie. He told the three other ones, I want you to basically lie against Kuzma. Okay, that's one. This is the second one, Texas, Conroe. Man is freed after 18 years in prison. A Southeast Texas man serving life in prison for the suffocation of his girlfriend's child in 1998. After serving 18 years, they now released him. Neil Hampton Robbins was in prison for 18 years. A medical examiner recanted her trial testimony 8 years ago, saying she could not determine the cause of the 17-month-old's death. Robbins said he put her in the crib for a nap and she died. This child had no injury, okay? There was no bruises, nothing, the baby fell out of the crib, which later they say, that could be an injury, that he lied. This was possibly a SIDS death, which now we're more familiar with, which sometimes children die with no apparent, sudden infant death syndrome. Okay, but the problem in that is the medical examiner 8 years ago, after the man was in prison for 10 years, the medical examiner said she was, she could not determine it. Maybe she realized, look, SIDS is common, and people have been in prison because the children die, sudden infant death syndrome. But regardless of what other evidence in the case, when the medical examiner, because they convicted him, from what I understand, solely on the basis that the medical examiner said it was a homicide, and they worked in collusion. But our society, and they still held him, and he had to get publicity, right, Innocence Project, I'm assuming, all that. But what our society thinks is when these things happen, through lying, through fabrication, through the actual assaulting of witnesses or whatever, our society seems to think Oops. Well, they're good people in general. I'm sure they are. Therefore, but what we have to do, Scripture, I've quoted this a lot. These are crimes committed, but it's those within the system that have committed these crimes. And they have no standard in these particular cases of truth-telling. And they actually suborn perjury by others and so forth. And then when they're caught, they continue to fight the people in the real innocent cases like Michael Morton and all. They will fight them because it's now no longer a matter of truth or justice in those particular cases. It's a matter of let's get all of our resources and go after the person we possibly wrongly convicted or put to death, Carlos de Luna. And that's one of the things that really upsets me, because I could see, and in the many cases I talked about here over the years, I could see there's an understanding in some situations where those within the system can actually commit crimes, documented crimes, real ones, worse than what I'm talking about even now. And that still continues to go on through that period of time. And maybe they deal with those things by saying, don't do these things again or whatever. But then the resources of a department, if you leave people like that on the force, it gives them the capability to then go after those people. So in general, I'm just doing this as a quick update because I wanted to give those two. The Hebrews one's going to go up right before this, the teaching video. And then I'm going to do the Samuel 17 at the ranch. Talk a little bit about Goliath and David and maybe a few little insights I'll give you a teaser now. It's the famous story where King David is going to fight and stand against the enemy mountain, if you will. Goliath also represents in the Philistines the kingdoms of men. But David's going to take his head off. He's going to defeat the giant with a sling and a stone. Those should be familiar with that. But he doesn't have a sword. Now, he takes the head of Goliath off, and he shows it. He's walking around with shows it to King Saul. And then he says he puts the head in Jerusalem. What's the mystery there? My Bible students, you're not going to actually see that teaching until maybe next week. What's the mystery there? Okay, there's a mystery there. Okay? You said, but Jerusalem is famous, John. It's the capital city. Not then it wasn't. Okay? Jerusalem was ruled by people called the Jebusites. And it was a fortress city. And David grew up in Bethlehem, about 8 miles outside of it. So why would David, that young boy who chops the giant's head off, why would he actually go and put it in Jerusalem? Jerusalem is not, like I said, Israel as a people did not yet take that city, that fortress city, which will become the capital in Israel's future under King David later on, which is a great city. So why did David do that? And how could he have done that? The Jebusites were enemies. Okay? So that's your teaser for that. That'll be on the next one. Okay. God bless.